Welcome to Slayerfest 98. I'm your host, Ian Carlos Crawford, and joining me for this episode of Hawkeye is my lovely co-host, Dr. Poet, and my best friend,
Kimberly and Southwick.
Hi.
Hi. Today we are joined by two wonderful guests that I'm very lucky to get to introduce you to. We have freelance writer and editor of The Nerds of Color.
Hey, it's Laura Sirikul. It's so great to be here. Thank you for having me again. I'm so excited to talk about this topic.
Yes, I love meeting another nerd that I can have on for stuff like this.
More nerds, yeah.
Nerds unite. All right, great. And we also have managing editor at primetimer.com.
Hey, it's JoeReid. What's up?
Joe, it's been a long time.
It's been a minute. I know. I was trying to think of the last time I was on here and what we were even talking about, but
right?
Yeah.
Was it season 6? I think it was Buffy season 6.
It probably was. Yeah. Oh, wow.
So joyous times.
Yeah, we were all having a great time.
So we're here to talk about episode 4 of Hawkeye. Joe and Laura, I'll get your reactions, how you felt when you finished the episode first. Joe, how did you feel when you finished this episode?
So, I mean, very, very happy that Yelena has finally showed up because she's been the person I've been waiting for. Not that I haven't been enjoying the show, because I actually have, but knowing that she was coming, and ever since the post-credit scene in Black Widow, you knew that I've been sort of tick-tock waiting for this moment. So, and as soon as even before she shows up on the roof, even when just when Clint starts getting beat up off screen, that Kate can hear, I'm just like, oh, that's Yelena.
Same.
So I was so happy to, that I was super relieved actually that they didn't try to tease it into the next episode. I was really worried we were going to get a thing where she's going to turn and she was going to take her mask off and then it would just be cut to credits. So I was glad we saw her. She and Kate got a really cool moment that was a callback to that scene that Kate and Clint had where he talked about how the best shot he ever took was the one he didn't take with Natasha. And so Kate sort of holds up on taking the shot at Yelena, and that shows, I feel for as much as we know that Yelena's connection is with Clint in this, that what made me feel maybe Yelena and Kate are going to have a connection moving forward.
Yeah.
And that's cool. So, because obviously so much of this show, for as much as I am a Hawkeye defender, I'm a Clint Barton defender in the MCU. So I'm glad that we're getting him in this show, but this show really seems to be an engine for moving things forward. So if that's one of the directions they're going to move it forward, I am super jazzed about that.
I would agree with that. Yeah. Laura, what did you think when you finished the episode?
Yes, the Yelena part was amazing. But what really drove me with the whole thing was Clint opening up. We got to see a vulnerable side to him. And that was such a big deal for me because we're so used to seeing him be closed up and solemn all the time. And, he's the least really known Avenger other than, we know his family. So I thought it was really endearing to have him open up and really open up about his relationship with Natasha, and and just everything regarding that, just seeing him be vulnerable and open up to her. That was really what drove me for this episode. And then of course Yelena being the badass that she is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Character development.
Yes.
Trauma, grief, all the things we love.
Yeah.
yes. I felt emotional, and I felt I know Joe is a Hawkeye fan, and I am too. But for this version of Hawkeye, I was kind of did the right person die?
Right.
And,
sure.
And
right.
so
Yeah.
with this, it kind of gave me another layer to him. I still am questioning it, but it gave me another layer to him.
Yes, I Laura, I would agree with that. Jim, what did you think about this episode?
Oh, I mean, we've been doing this every week, so I feel like I have to put it in perspective with the other episodes. Yeah. And I feel again, as I felt last week, I believe, or as somebody said last week, that wasn't me, maybe this should have been a movie, a Christmas movie, because I just always want more. You know, I feel like they give us just enough. And also maybe it could have been fine by a TV series, but don't give us this week to week episode dropping thing. I want to just be able to watch it all at once.
I do,
that's how I feel.
I do see that, because WandaVision for me worked as engagement television. I don't know that Loki or Falcon, definitely not Falcon and Winter Soldier. And I don't know that this, I almost feel like this could have been a bingeable show.
Yeah.
I don't know, Joe. You're the TV expert.
You make a good point about WandaVision, though, because WandaVision, the episodic nature of WandaVision, especially in the early episodes, was part of its deal. Like it was part of sort of the reality of that show. And so I think it was important that you had 1 week where we were in one reality, and then the next week we were in the different type of sort of sitcom genre. And to have those things kind of mush together and blend together would have robbed that show of what it was trying to do. And so, yeah, Falcon and the Winter Soldier was flawed for a lot of reasons. But yes, that one, it was harder to sort of differentiate episode by episode. Loki, I think I was cool with Loki being episodic in that way. But like I could see it sort of both ways. In Hawkeye's trying to be so many different things, and I think that's maybe the thing that is keeping me from being like super enthused about it, is that sometimes I feel like it's on so many different tracks and following so many different things that I'm just like I'm not getting it all together, you know, and I sort of wish that we were able to sort of like follow each avenue as its own thing. But it's also a short series, and I, in general, am always going to prefer episodic over an entire show dropping at once on a purely practical level of just like, I only have time for 40 minutes of Hawkeye this week, so that's what I watched, and it's just like, it's cool.
Truth.
But I also am getting the sense of just like, all right, they've set up all of these things, and like TikTok, they don't have a whole lot of time to now pay these off, especially with the teases that they're throwing in. We got the whole Rolex thing was brought back into the focus this week. And so it's like, who does the Rolex belong to? And of course, after I watch the episode, I immediately go online because I'm literally writing in my notes, like, who could the Rolex belong to? Like, question mark. And then I go online and it's just like, it's definitely this person. It's just like, okay, like all of my wonder goes away and just like, who's behind the tracksuits? And it's like, it's definitely this guy. And I was like, oh, okay.
You know what though? Your point that like, we only have got 2 episodes left. That's how I felt about Loki, you know?
Yeah.
And I know we get season 2 Loki, and one of the things that's keeping this like 100% alive, and I love this. I mean, I guess like I should have said that earlier when I was complaining about how it should have been a movie, or maybe we talked a little bit about that this last week about how maybe Marvel's just not good at TV quite yet, but they started with WandaVision, which was amazing, so they like tricked us.
Yeah.
But the thing, sorry, I wrote a really long sentence and never got to the independent clause there. The thing that's keeping this alive for me is like, it's a Christmas special.
Yes.
And that last ep is going to drop like right before Christmas. And fucking Clint Barton is going to be home with his family, and they're going to be happy. God damn it.
They're going to be wearing ugly sweaters, and they're going to be making gingerbread houses, and that's all I want.
Unless it's Merry Christmas, here's a cliffhanger.
That's true.
Season 2.
They wouldn't do it to us. They wouldn't.
I would lose my mind if this had like a Loki cliffhanger type thing.
Oh my God.
I actually will say that like when we recorded on episodes 1 and 2, I did feel like they were dragging a little bit. I have felt since that these last 2 episodes have felt like, oh, we're done. Like we get to the end and like, I'm like, oh shit, that's it. We're done. Yeah. Like I've been wanting more, which is good, right? That's not a bad sign. That's a good thing.
Right.
This episode, like you said, Joe, I kept, or maybe it was you, Laura, whichever one of you said that, like, I thought, like, it was like, oh yeah, that's gotta be Yelena. Are we even gonna see her? Like, I thought it was like, he pulls off her mask and that's it. And like, I was waiting for it to end. And I was glad we at least finished that scene, right? Because we did. We finished.
Next step is letting her talk. Like, it's just like baby steps. Like, we saw her face, and now I want to hear from her. Yeah.
Okay, so let's get into the episode itself. I actually really enjoyed the, like, scene between Kate's mom, her soon-to-be stepdad, and Hawkeye, because I feel like I love that, like, he was like, oh, you're Archer. And she's like, why is there an Avenger in my living room? Because they do a lot of like jokes about his branding, how he needs a costume, which is clearly leading to her like giving him his costume we see him wear on all the promo photos.
Right.
But they do a lot of like people don't know him, but I was glad that it was like, yeah, the mom would recognize an Avenger, right? Like she just would. Like, even my mother, who is 75 and can't remember celebrities, she would know one of it.
If my big, expensive high-rise got destroyed by a bunch of aliens who the Avengers were fighting, I'd probably keep close tabs on the Avengers from then forward. Like, I think that's a news thing I would have an alert for. Yeah.
She's also the head of security, so I feel like a security firm, so I feel like she would know all the superheroes.
Yes. Totally.
Also a good point. Yes.
That's kind of one of the fun points, too, about the four of them all sitting around that breakfast, dinner, lunch, whatever time of day table it is. You know, with the two of them and their banter is like, one, we know Jack is somebody.
Right.
Even before we know, which is right now. Two, obviously Hawkeye, obviously Kate. And three, like, her mom. Is she in on it? Is she not? You know, like, how much does she know?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So,
I'm so fascinated by, like, they wouldn't have cast Vera Farmiga just to, like, be in the background as her mom. Like, clearly, like, I didn't realize she was on the show until I watched the first episode, and I was like, holy shit, Vera Farmiga. So now I'm, like, deeply waiting for, like, the other shoe to drop with that. Like, something's going on.
Wait, Laura, what do you think about that with the mom? I know you're a big comics nerd like me.
Yeah, so obviously we know that Eleanor is part of this. Like, I think she might be the madame, but anyway. But I feel like Jack is a himbo, and that he's just looks like it seems like he is the villain. But I think Eleanor is pulling all the strings.
Yeah.
Because I feel like he's just a pretty face for Eleanor. And it looks like he's the bad guy, but he's really just a himbo that doesn't know better.
Do we think we're going to find out that she's the one who knifed Armand?
Yeah, I feel because like after Hawkeye left, she was just like, well, she called someone.
Yes.
And so for me,
yeah.
And plus, she's the head of security. How could she not know that her man is the head of the tracksuit mafia group?
Right.
Sloan. So I feel like she's pulling all the strings, and he's just her little side piece that she's tagging along and hiding. I feel like they're trying to what's that word? Like when you it's the word where they
switcheroo.
Like it's like
red herring.
Yeah, red herring. Yes.
There we go.
Herring. Thank you. So thank you. Yeah, I feel like he's a red herring, and I feel like Eleanor, because we know her history in the comic books too. Yeah. I feel like it's gonna be that situation.
I would kind of love that by the end if, like, it turns out he's just like he's a pretty face who mixes up idioms and idolizes Huey Lewis. Like, that's just sort of he's a very simple man. Like,
he just likes swords.
I would kind of love that.
Swords.
Yeah.
Well, so like. Wait, so Laura, what is Kate's mom's history in the comics? I actually don't know this.
Oh, so she's dead in the comics, quote unquote dead.
Okay.
In the comic books, especially in the so in the beginning, her father is like her father's alive, and the mom died not from what happened. And then also Kate has a sister, so that was weird not having a sister. But anyway, but yeah, the mom died in the accident in Colorado, and so the dad raised her with the stepmom. But we find I don't know if you guys recognize Madame Masqué.
I was wondering if I that was my when we recorded our first episode, I said that I thought that was my guess, was that the mom would be Madame Masque.
I think the mom is Madame Masqué. And so because like the thing is, in the beginning, this is my theory, the mom and the dad, Derek, were talking about how they don't have money and they might have to sell the house, and then the tragedy happens. I feel like the dad's death pushed her to kind of be shady, and so to do all these things, and like she's part of the Sloan and working with Fisk. So I feel like she is like Madame Masqué, and I feel like that's like they're having the mom and the daughter kind of head to head in the future.
She also had that line in the first episode to Kate about how she's like, you're young and you're rich and you've never not been either one of those things, and I've not been those things, and that I sort of filed that one away too. It's just like she has like maneuvered and she has worked to get to the position that she's in, is what that statement sort of said to me.
True. And also with that statement, she's pushing Kate away from like this vigilante lifestyle, which if all of this does come to fruition, like really kind of would be put them at head to head.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And she does the same thing when Hawkeye's in the elevator, right before we see that he's stolen the Ronin sword. When she's like to him, like, she is not a superhero, you know, and she's posing as concerned mom, if our angle that we are we're reading at it now is right, or she's actually concerned mom and we're all totally wrong. But y'all convinced me, so.
Right, like Kim, you and I think we talked about that in the first recording, like, or is this just how like wildly rich people act? Like, but
always a possibility.
If you look at the runaways, the parents versus the kids, I feel like this is another situation. I mean, obviously they're not going to cross the runaways with Hulu, but it's kind of like that situation. They're not afraid to get to make the mom and Vera Farmiga an evil person.
And she would kill it as a fucking villain, right?
Oh,
like
yeah.
she would.
Oh my
and
God.
again, like you cast her for a reason. Like you cast somebody with that kind of screen presence for a reason. And I think that at the very least, it's good. It's to make you suspicious of her. If not, if you're not going to pull the trigger, but like, might as well pull the trigger.
Yeah. Yeah. So we get, I don't know. I just loved Clint, like almost being like treated like he's also a kid in trouble when he's like at that table.
Yes.
And he's just kind of like the shitty teen, and like Kate's more like the talkative one, and he's just like, whatever, man. Like, I'm gonna go skateboard, mom. But so he leaves. He immediately calls his wife, which I saw people on Twitter talking about this, and I also. What do we, Laura? I need your comic. What do you think?
She might be Mockingbird. She might be Mockingbird, but because the watch might belong to her, or has information on her. This is a theory that's going around on Twitter and also in my head that Laura Barton, because there's no history of a Laura Barton in the comic books, but Clint Barton was married to a Mockingbird, and so I have a feeling that they met. Well, they were both agents, and then Laura decided, I'm not going to be an agent. I'm going to be a mom and marry you, and we're going to live this normal life. Because she spoke German, and so history, like as a spy, Mockingbird has no ties to Germany other than she was captured at one point in the comic books by German spies. But still, like the fact that Laura Barton speaks German and she knows that, and that he was just like, I have to hide some. Like he mentioned, like he's trying to hide that person because like. This person can't be found and stuff.
Right.
Okay? And so I was thinking, I'm like, it has to be Laura Barton. Like she must have been an agent, because how else would they have met? Like at a cafe? Oh yeah.
Right.
And she was so down immediately. Like she like immediately switched into like, talking in code, and she was like, I can track that thing. And
she's like, I turned on the tracker and I all this stuff. And I'm just like, oh my God. So she might be like another universe version of Mockingbird. And that's why she gave up her life to be Mrs. Barton.
I will say, and I know that I'm like definitely in the minority here. The MCU is very good at their continuity. And I will say it will really annoy me if we push Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. out of the continuity by making her Mockingbird.
I hear you, Ian, but I also think that Kevin Feige can't fucking wait to do exactly that. Like, I think he's dying to do that. I think he wants to cut the cord on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. once and for all. Yeah, I think it's a blemish to him. I think it's a blemish on Marvel, even though I don't agree, because I really loved Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and I especially loved Bobby Morse on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. She was one of my favorite characters. Yes. I'm fine with retconning shit and whatever, and I'm certainly fine with like Laura turning out to be, a former S.H.I.E.L.D. agent and whatnot. And like make her Mockingbird. Like that's fine. It's a comic book universe. Everything is malleable. But I do feel like everything that we hear about Kevin Feige, he's just like, he's really itching to just be like, yeah, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. doesn't count, which is, a bummer for us who loved that show.
I did that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. roundtable episode, and I think they all kind of feel that he feels the same way.
Yeah.
But I'm always, listen, that show wasn't perfect, but I sing its praises because when it was hit, it was very hit, I think.
Yes.
The misses were huge misses as well, but what were you saying, Laura? Sorry.
You have to remember, this is the multiverse. Like, there's a multiverse. Yes. So there's S.H.I.E.L.D., Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. could be in another multiverse. This could be, Laura Barton is this multiverse's Mockingbird. Right. Because like he hasn't been married to anyone else. Like he's had relationships, but this is Mockingbird. He actually married her and had like a family.
Right.
So.
I mean, then it becomes it's no longer like what's canon and what isn't, but like what is our verse versus what are in the other verses, and then that's a whole can of worms that I don't know if they can't wait to open or if they're just like conveniently going to use it.
The other thing about Laura that I read, and I think it was Brett White at Decider, but I'm not positive, mentioned that, like, wait a second, we've never seen Laura off the farm, like, ever on the show.
Yeah, that's
and so
true.
it's just
yeah.
like, is she
off the phone?
Oh.
And in this show, like this one, like yes,
right?
Like, actually, no, we have seen her on the farm. So sorry, go ahead.
Yes, and so the theory there being like she's maybe in hiding for reasons, you know what I mean, that something went down when she was an agent of Shield, and now she, you know, can't, and it would explain why they take a family trip to New York and mom doesn't come with them, you know what I mean, which did sort of stick out in the first episode of just is
Adam
Linda
Cass was
Cardellini like
it.
is this like a COVID thing where they couldn't film together or something like that, like I wasn't sure, and it would definitely explain that.
Right, because it's not like she didn't stay home to take care of one of the kids. All of the kids were with him.
It's a weird thing. It's a weird setup. Yes.
Yeah. I guess I'm just like, I do think it could just be she was an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. It could be just that, right?
Sure.
Like,
yes.
So, and we'll get there because I do have something else to say about that. But okay, so he calls her. We basically beef up the role of Laura Barton in this a lot, which is nice because I'm glad they're giving Mae Whitman more to do because she deserves. Because she's great.
Oh no, Linda Cardellini.
Linda Cardellini.
I was just gonna say she's great in Dead Like Me.
Mae Whitman deserves no matter what, and we can say it whenever we want to.
Mae Whitman deserves everything.
Yes.
Linda Cardellini, who is it's because when I watched Dead Like Me? Dead to Me.
Yes.
I kept thinking it was Mae Whitman that was in that show, but it's Linda Cardellini.
That's so funny.
Because I'm always like, I love Mae Whitman in that show that's about grief, but it's not.
Do you remember that movie Foxcatcher with Steve Carell and Channing Tatum and Mark Ruffalo about?
I do, yes.
He plays the rich guy who murders the wrestler. So Mark Ruffalo's wife in that movie is played by Sienna Miller, and I watched that entire movie and got at the end, and I was like, you know who I really liked was Linda Cardellini as his wife. And somebody is just like, that was Sienna Miller, man. And it was just like, oh, okay, like absolutely had no idea. So
I'm not the only one.
It's a continuum. We just like we confuse. Yeah.
But I do think like she definitely has the acting chops to be like, yeah, we like think she's this mom who never leaves the house, but actually, giving her more to do. But yeah, they definitely beef up her role. They give her, she's still on the phone, but it's like, oh, she's speaking Russian. She's doing whatever with the tracker. Then we cut to Kate and her mom and the boyfriend. I will say, Laura, I really do think you're right about him just being a himbo, because even their chemistry here, I was like, do they not have good chemistry? It feels fake. Yeah, like it felt like Vera Farmiga wasn't enjoying it, like.
Well, it kind of looked fake in a way from her point of view. I feel like he thinks he's reeling her in, but I feel like she's just playing along because she's kind of like, well, he's a pretty thing, why not? And like I could just use him as the fall guy. So if anything happens, it's going to fall on him. That's why when Clint was like, oh, he's in charge of the thing. And I was just thinking, him?
Yeah.
Right.
And so, like, this guy? And so and just watching them interact, I was just like, oh, he's totally the fall guy. He's totally the himbo. We're made to think he's good at, he is a good swordsman, but I feel like he is talented at that, but I feel like he just is dumb.
It's entirely too easy to have the guy with the big villain mustache be a villain. Like, it's just like, they're not going to do that.
I think in the first two episodes, I definitely was like, oh, like, is he a red herring? I didn't use that language because, that's the language we've just come up with now. But I definitely was like, oh, we don't know. And then, like, I forgot about that. And I was totally sold by him. I'm on Kate's side, and y'all have just totally convinced me the other way. I do love his, like, mixing up all the aphorisms just because that's something that I do.
Yeah.
A long time ago when Ian and I were kids, and I was like, you got to stop kicking the dead dog. And I meant obviously beating the dead horse.
Beating a dead horse. That's so funny.
And so I just always remember like everybody making fun of me for that. Anyway, sorry to bring up, ages old.
I know. Wow. Holding on to that drama. Fantastic.
So I'm Jack. That's what I'm saying.
But yeah, no, and his character, the character that he is in the comics is more of a like sometimes bad, sometimes good. Like he's been on the Avengers. So like, yeah, I And I think the Disney does this a lot, where they show a character like him. He's probably not going to be much in this, but it's like they have him around in case they do want to have swordsmen
Right.
for something, right?
Right.
Like I kind of think it's just like, yeah. They probably like have him on retainer, and that actor will have a 500-year contract. But
yeah, they are leading up to like some big sword fight at some point in this series, right? It really feels like we got to get something like that.
Right.
Oh
Yeah.
you can't have the swordsman without a sword fight. Like
Right.
I feel like he is good at it, and like I feel like he's just like the body guy. Like he's built to fight, but maybe not all there in the head.
Yeah.
That sounds like my type of guy. Like, so Kate's mom is very much like, let's plan the Christmas party. And like, this is another reason. This is like, again, Kim and I talked about this, where I'm like, is she a villain, or is this just how like ridiculously wealthy people talk, where it's like, you were just in the living room with an Avenger. Anyway, let's plan the Christmas party. And
right.
like, I couldn't tell if it was a diversion or literally the mom just like didn't give a shit about what was going on prior.
I wondered though if the scene, which starts out weird, like Kate's at therapy, because she's sitting on the couch. I thought that was a weird, I thought it was an interesting choice. But I wondered if the scene was supposed to show us that Kate is like endeared by her mother's happiness.
I think it's like, that she's coming around on them as a couple, which is like a total red flag to like something bad's going to happen, because like clearly, it's setting Kate up to sort of be disillusioned or disappointed or something.
She's gonna feel guilty. I think she's gonna feel guilty because like when he said, "Oh yeah, you're right about Jack," she paused and she was like, "Yeah, then we have to keep him."
Yeah.
Yeah, I also think the setup here basically, because the mom says when he dips her, she's like, "Oh, what's better than, the holidays with your family?" And I think they're definitely setting this up to be like, Kate will have her chosen family in the Bartons, and when her mom either becomes a villain or whatever, it's like Kate's like, peace, I don't need to spend Christmas with you because you are a bad person.
Right.
Or whatever.
Right.
Because then immediately we see her going to Clint's. Well, her aunt's actually, but that's where Clint is staying. She brings pizza, she brings the dog. Were we supposed to assume there was alcohol in those beverages they were making?
Yes.
Right? Because they didn't explicitly say it, did they?
No, 22.
But they were daiquiris.
22.
Yeah, and she, right, Laura, she is good. She's of legal age.
Yeah.
But I do like how it starts out that like Clint's got he's using the daiquiris and like taking Laura's
using them as ice packs was so funny to me. I love that so much. Yeah.
And like, I was very charmed by this whole like montage of them kind of like figuring out the plan, the investigation, while wearing silly Christmas sweaters.
Yes. And watching the Santa Claus. Like,
I also liked how like we got to see like Clint trying to be funny, or like, casual. He says, he's like, oh, we got to talk about Sword Boy. And I feel like he doesn't have as many funny lines as she does. So like something like that really stuck out to me, like that he feels comfortable around her to like say something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like, I'm going to ask you guys, I will say at this point, I was like, I'm not really sure what they're investigating anymore. Like, I wasn't sure what to them was the mystery. I know that, because like Hawkeye didn't tell her about the watch yet. I know that he was looking for it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But like, she didn't know. And I just was like, wait a minute, what mystery does she think? Is it, because it felt like they weren't talking about the dead dude anymore. And I thought that was kind of the thing they were trying to figure out. And it felt like that has left the conversation at this point in the show.
To me, it's plausible that, like, I don't think you're wrong. I think still in Kate's mind, they're looking to find out who killed Simon Callow's character.
Okay.
And who was behind the heist at the auction, and whether Jack is bad or not. But I also feel like at this point, it's 50-50 that she just wants to be on a mission with Hawkeye is the other thing. Like, and whatever it is, she's on a mission with her idol. And
in episode 3, I felt like even if they didn't draw a clear connection between the murder and the tracksuit mafia, etc., they drew like there was some sort of vague or broad connection that they brought up. So investigating the two of them side by side suddenly made sense. And that's why I don't think when, they're talking about this investigation, quotation marks, it mattered to me too much exactly what it was. Because I was like, oh, it's all connected now.
And Hawkeye's definitely going after the Rolex, and that seems important. So like then he's like, he would be the one I would be more skeptical. If there wasn't a strong enough reason for him to be doing it, then it would have been more of a problem for me, because like once this is done, he really does want to get back to his family. But like, I think Kate's happy to be along for the ride at this point. I think she wants the ride to sort of last as long as it can.
I also do feel like Marvel is they have this problem of having too many characters in some aspects, like too many situations and theories that goes on. Like with like the other with Loki, there was like just multiple like villains and multiple stuff. And I feel like with this one, they are doing the same thing where is it going to be Eleanor and Jack? And what's going on with the Tracksuit Mafia and Maya? Is there Wilson Fisk? And then now with Yelena, it's going to be really about the Countess. And so, so I feel like it's becoming like all the villains are just becoming like convoluted together, like coming together and just being a mixture of like who's the real villain, and it gets confusing. And I'm really curious of how they're going to treat it near the end, especially since Echo's having her own series. And we know we're going to see Yelena again and how she deals with the Countess. So it's really scary of how they're going to really put all this together within 2 episodes.
I think this is exactly my thing with it too, is because I think we can be reasonably certain that we're not going to get another Hawkeye season or series, right? It's just like, this feels like this is Hawkeye's. This is probably what we're going to get for Hawkeye for a while. He might, pop up in certain things, but his whole deal is he wants to just get back home and be with his family. And I think that's where it's going to end up for him at the end of the series. But I think this is about spinning off Kate into either her show, or like maybe Hawkeye season 2 is just Kate, you know what I mean? And Clint will show up once or twice. And then there's, is there a Young Avengers thing down the line? What Echo is getting her own spinoff, and where does Kingpin, if Kingpin shows up, which everybody seems to assume that he's going to, where does he fit? And then to me, the question is, because you mentioned Valentina and like, what's her whole deal? What's she trying to do? And bringing it back to Yelena, she's sort of a character without a franchise right now, because Black Widow was the one-off, and there's not going to be any more Black Widow. So is she going to get her own movie down the line, her own show, or is she going to like join the universe of a different, character? And this show is going to have to, by the end, send everybody off in all of those different directions. And that's a lot to do in 2 episodes.
I want to meet the guy who knows all this and like isn't allowed to tell anyone.
Kevin Feige.
Kevin Feige.
Kevin Feige.
I just want to like sit down in front of him and be like, what's it like to be you and know all this stuff?
Right. I wish there was a way that I could just touch his head and just absorb all the knowledge that he has of all, like, because he always has a grand scheme plan of everything. So I feel like he would be the main person, but it's just 2 episodes left, and we have so many open holes regarding that, especially with like Wilson Fisk, like with Maya, Uncle, and then also Kazi. Kazi is actually the clown. So when is he going to transform into this villainous assassin? Because it seems like he's like a sucker for like, because Clint was able to like easily like be like, nope, you're not getting your gun and all this stuff.
Right.
And Kazi in the comic books is like vicious.
A murderer,
is a murderer.
Is his superpower handsomeness though? Is that it? Is that what's going on?
And I feel like that's the thing. They have to F up his face too.
Yeah.
Because like to make him the clown, because their whole purpose is like he grew up as a clown and he just doesn't look good. But Fra Free is like, hey, what's up, dude? But
he is hot.
That's a babe right there. Yeah.
So I feel like you have 2 episodes left, and then somehow you have to have Kazi be the clown. How could he not like transform into that unless there is going to be a season? There is going to be a season 2.
Or if that happens to him on Echo. If he sort of follows Maya to that show.
I think okay, so I think that this has been my issue. I didn't have this issue with a lot of the movies. I didn't have this issue with WandaVision. This issue didn't start hitting me until like Falcon and Winter Soldier. I really don't want a thing that has been like bothering me, and like Loki season 2 I enjoyed, and Kim, I know that like you really loved it too, but like I don't like leaving all these threads hanging, because then it doesn't feel complete. And so it is starting to like wear on me that we're doing all these things, and it's like, yeah, I mean, Laura, you even mentioned, like, they're packed with characters. And even this, where we do have our two main characters, we're introducing character. Like, Yelena just came in and we have 2 episodes left. Like,
Right.
we're like, the threads are out there, and I don't want it to be watch Echo to find out what happens. Like, I don't know, that either I don't want him to become the clown in this, like, I want that guy to just be him, and it's like, okay, maybe sometime, but like, I don't like a half-done story, and it's like, ooh, find out there, because I know they're trying to do very comic book stuff here, but in comic books, it's still usually like, this story is this story. Yeah, you'll see more of those characters in these other stories. They will have more to do. They will have another story, but it's like the story's still complete in that comic book. And sometimes it feels with this, you know, Loki was the biggest culprit of that. Yeah, because it's like, ooh, this big thing happened and we just ended. Like, we don't know why, we don't know what it did, but you're going to find out in a movie. Like,
yeah, I was cool with Loki because I was like, well, we're going to get season 2 of Loki. So like, that's fine. Like, it's like, it's not cliffhanging us into a bunch of other shows. And normally, I agree with you, Ian, that's not usually a problem for me. I don't have a problem that a lot of people have with just like, oh, I hate the MCU movies because it just means I have to watch another MCU movie. I'm just like, I was going to watch another MCU movie anyway. So like, whatever, this is great.
It's the waiting, and you expect ultimate, like, you're expecting it to complete, and instead you have to wait for to feel complete.
Yeah.
As someone who did all of the MCU in the year of 2020,
oh wow,
I couldn't agree more.
I do feel like, though, as I said, oh, sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just gonna say, because I didn't have to wait. You know, like I just, they were all there. You know.
No,
so,
that's the way to do it.
Thing. Whew. I don't know how y'all did it after the blip.
Well, now you have to wait for the Eternals. What happens after that, and then after Loki, and then everything keeps getting pushed back. So it's like, when are we gonna get it? And then I have to find Kevin Feige so I can get all this information.
Right. But I do feel like we're going to get a closure on Clint's story. And for some people, that's not what they're in this for. And like, cool, I get it. But I do feel like we're going to at least, like, I think by the end of this, he'll have found a way to sort of put the Ronin thing behind him, and he'll have found some closure, and he'll be, you know, mentoring Kate in some capacity, which is the thing that made me like Clint in the first, like the thing that made me like Clint when everybody was sort of hating on him was him mentoring Wanda in Age of Ultron. Like, that to me is like my favorite flavor of Clint. And then he comes back in Civil War and does the same thing. And that to me, I was like, oh, I know what your place in this universe is. You're the guy without superpowers who sort of understands the value of this, you know, the sort of familial nature of the Avengers. And also then you're the guy with the family at home. And I loved those scenes, that scene in Ultron where he basically is just like, you know, welcome to the family, go out there and kick some ass. And I like that that's the position that they've got him in with Kate now too.
Which kind of brings us back to the scene that we were at.
Yeah, it does.
The pizza, and like they're drinking the daiquiris, and they're wearing their dog and their cat ugly sweater and doing all these Christmas things, but also like working and drawing on the A Chance of Love, A Change of Love poster. My notes are inconclusive. That is not a dry erase board. So I like this.
I did like that they gave her credit too, because as they're talking about Ronan, I'm like, she would absolutely put this together.
Yes,
oh, she did. Okay,
she did.
great.
Yes, I liked that a lot. Yeah.
And we didn't even, there wasn't like a light bulb moment. She was just like, it was you.
Yeah.
Like,
and you get that moment of just like, you've been harboring that one for a little bit too. Like, you were just waiting for a moment to say it, which I liked. Yeah.
That's what I thought too. So the thing I did want to talk about, so he says that, like, she asked him what his, like, is it your favorite shot or whatever? And he says,
the best shot you ever took.
Yeah.
Right. And he says it's the one I didn't take.
Mm-hmm.
And so we are to assume he's talking about Natasha.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering if that will tie, because we're actually talking about, like, because the Rolex is kind of his, that's the mystery we're doing here is, well, the mystery for him is the Rolex, right? I'm wondering if the shot he didn't take was Laura Barton, whatever her thing was that she had going on, and that ties back into her identity that's in the Rolex. And maybe that's what he was talking about, because he never said it was Natasha. He
didn't, but I feel like he threw in some details that really track with what we found out in Black Widow was the Budapest mission that they keep talking about.
And doesn't Kate say like, oh, like that was Natasha?
But he doesn't say anything back.
Okay.
Right.
But it could, you're right. I was thinking that, and then I was like, wait, what if it's Laura? Because we just saw her do spy shit. Like, that's what I was thinking.
I wouldn't put it past, this show to do that. But I think emotionally it works best if it is Natasha, because he's, that's one of the things he's got to sort of work his way past in this show. And also, I think this being the episode that introduces Yelena, that makes it important that was the story he told in this episode. Because one of the sort of frustrating things, as I, again, look at the clock and I'm like, 2 episodes, it's only 2 episodes, is we know we got to get to the part where Clint explains to Yelena what really happened on Vormir. And, already I've got this nod in myself of just she's not going to believe him, and he's going to have to really convince her, and blah, blah, blah. And I think the thing that's going to ultimately convince her, if she does get convinced by the end of the season, is it's so clear when he talks about Natasha how much he loved her. And at some point you just sort of, you see that in him. And that's why I think that scene is important to have in this episode.
Yeah, because then they go to bed, right? And he turns off his hearing aid, and it hurt my feelings seeing Natasha say, it's okay. I was like, I want to see this again.
I was waiting in this scene for a flashback, because if y'all don't know, I know Ian knows, I do rely on them sometimes. And I liked that we got it at the end when he turned off the hearing aid, and we get, just a little flashbacks of, it was him, I think, being Ronin with his kid right before the blip, and then the Natasha thing. I thought those were 3 good sort of.
It's definitely Natasha, because the whole purpose of this the whole series is kind of to showcase him mourning for her, his grief, and his survivor's guilt, and also the fact that the show is trying to prove why he was worth saving. Why was he the one worth sacrificing when he did all that horrible thing as Ronin? Even though she has red in her ledger, he has red in his ledger. So I feel like what Natasha did was, I made up for my red ledger. Yep. Now it's your turn to make up for your red ledger. Yep. And I feel like this series is meant to kind of reflect her growth from being a Black Widow to being an Avenger, and then now all this red in his ledger, and trying to not reclaim, but
redemption.
Thank you. Yeah. Oh my god, what's wrong with me? I've been writing all day, and I should know this. But yeah, this is his time for redemption, as she finished her redemption, and so I feel like they're definitely talking about Natasha. And that the watch thing, it's just kind of like a side thing for the future, to let them know, maybe Laura Barton will play a larger role, or whoever the watch actually belongs to will play a larger role to connect them in the MCU.
That's fair. Yeah, that's totally fair. So then they wake up and they have their separate missions to go on. He's going to see Hawkeye with a neck tattoo. She's going to see the LARPers. I don't know how all of you feel, but I love the LARPers. I liked them when they were introduced. I like that they're nerdy, but it's not Big Bang Theory to me. It doesn't feel, it feels like, these folks are just like LARPers. It doesn't feel like we're making fun of them for being nerdy.
No.
I think it helps that, the cop that they talk to is suddenly a cop.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
she has a job. Yeah.
Yeah. Things like that, where it's just oh no, this is just a thing we do for fun. And we're going to have fun with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you can't really judge them for having fun when your actual day job is something like that. You know what I mean?
I did think the cop thing was pretty superficial. Not that I'm super complaining, but the fact that she was just steal something from evidence. Yeah, I can do that. It's just okay.
Listen, what happens in the LARP community stays in the LARP
community. I mean, right, though, so many shows, even when they're nerdy, when they're showing us nerds, it's haha, look, it's nerds. And I fucking hate that shit, because come on, I'm the audience here. But I appreciated that it's, like you said, Kim, they kind of made them, and the other ones are mostly firefighters. He knew that, and
right.
I don't know, I like that. And in the comics, it's he has the people that live in the building that are like the side characters, and I feel like the LARPers are going to be those people, and I hope they are. Like I enjoy them. I enjoy Hawkeye being annoyed with them. I kind of loved Kate was like, wow, this is intense. And then when they get back to the apartment, she's like, look at this new outfit they made me. Like she's into it. That reminded me of you, Kim. Like I feel like that's like you go into something like that, you'd be like, this is a lot, and then suddenly you're like, Ian, holy shit, look at this cool thing.
Thanks.
But so, and then Clint, I mean, you talked about it already, Joe. He goes to, God, what the hell is it? I don't even remember his name. You remember his name. Kazi, right.
Yeah.
I'm just like, oh, the hot guy. Clint kind of talks. I feel like they were dancing around not saying Kingpin, because I was like, someone's going to say Kingpin, right? Because he's like the head of all this. He's the uncle. Like, we're going to say his name. No, we're not going to say his name.
Yeah.
Okay.
I really liked his line, Clint's line, when he says, you seem like a reasonably not stupid guy. I just thought that was great.
And he's like, thank you. And so he basically is just like, you're in Maya's ear. Like, it felt like he wasn't giving him, he was just kind of like, make her stop trying to kill me. The end.
Yeah. He was trying to threaten him.
Yeah.
But didn't have any good reason to do it, except like he just wants her to stop.
Yeah, because it's like, but she could.
It's drawing attention that they don't want.
That's true. I don't know. So then he gets back to the apartment. We learn that the cop is also a lesbian, which I liked when she was like, oh my, I think she says partner, or does she say wife? She says wife.
She says wife. Yeah.
Yeah. She says that her wife engraved like a stitched bombshell on it.
Right.
Which, Joe, you mentioned this. I told Brett I always use his articles. Oh. That is the name of a superhero in the comics.
Of course.
That's that character, her name and Bombshell. Bombshell's her alias, and whatever that character's name is Bombshell's name.
I should have known that just from that. Because, like, obviously they're not going to drop something like that if that doesn't mean something. Of course, yeah, of course.
I know, right? We should have assumed.
I know.
They were in the 1983 Hawkeye comic book series, apparently, because the other guy is someone as well. He's named like Oddball or something. But so, also, I thought that they didn't have his arrows. I thought Clint got his stuff back from them. Was that incorrect, Joe? Because they have the arrows.
I just sort of took the show at its word that like we got to get my arrows back. They're in, someplace by the Manhattan Bridge. I was like, oh, cool. Go get your arrows back. Like, I love this idea that there's just like a finite number of arrows. And I'm not sure whether we're supposed to know why that is. Or whether his like his arrow source has dried up or whatever. We saw he had the one that was a Pym arrow, which like that was last week, right? We saw that. Which was rad as hell. And so like clearly somebody's making, arrowheads of some extraction.
I guess
maybe the supply chain has gotten to Hawkeye too. Maybe that's what's happening.
Well, I think the arrows that they caught were the ones that were thrown and like because you know how the on the bridge all this chaos happened and the arrows are all over the place. He reuses the arrows, but it also reminds me of his SNL skit. Jeremy Renner did an SNL skit from where he was like, "I'm all out of arrows. Hey, what do you expect? I'm all out of arrows."
And I would almost think that maybe it's like Tony Stark, like the ones that are like ridiculous, like Tony Stark was making those. Like,
that's
like
actually a really good point. Yeah.
Like Clint will have his regular arrows, but like the ones that are fancy that have like the goop and like the pin particles, like Tony Stark was making.
Speaking of goop, though, why wouldn't Pepper be on this? Like
I was going to make that joke too.
Sorry, I'm so sorry.
That's right. You're faster than I am.
I'm sorry.
I mean, one would assume that she's like, maybe they don't want to bother her or like not as close with her. I don't know. But, I mean, you're right. She could just bankroll it and be like, someone do this. I don't care.
Right. Is it vagina scented?
God. I had someone asking at my job if we had books on vagina steaming, and I was like, Gwyneth Paltrow, you did this! And the answer was no, we did not. But so... then they go to this apartment with the watch, and he kind of explains what's going on. And Joe, I have said this before, and Laura, I don't know if you're a Buffy fan.
I know I have watched it. Yeah, I watched all the episodes, but I haven't rewatched it or like memorized everything. But if you were to tell me about the episode, I'll be like, yeah, I remember that. Like it's
Okay,
like
so
a reflection.
So you're not unhinged like me and Joe about Buffy. I will say the thing I love about Kate is she feels very Buffy to me.
Sure. Yeah.
And this scene felt especially so when he's like, all right, you gotta sneak in, you gotta use the arrow. And she's just like, hi to this like elderly man and helps him carry in his bags and is just like very charming and
charging right ahead. Yeah.
Right? Like that reminded me of like Buffy and Giles. Like Giles would be like, oh, this is the prophecy and blah blah. And she's like, all right, I got it, and just like walks in. Like that's how I often feel. Like I think that's why I love Kate so much, because we haven't gotten to have like a lady be that kind of hero in the MCU. Either they're like mostly the like straight man, quote unquote, that aren't like making jokes and being like easy and breezy and shitty, and she is, and I love that.
Yeah, see, I will disagree with you on I do agree on the Buffy a little bit of that, but I feel like Buffy understands her job and her responsibility. I feel Kate is naive and privileged. That's why the mom said you're young and you're rich, so you really don't have any like no fear. You're overconfident. But Buffy has seen death and like understands the risk of like when she does have to fight. I mean, it took forever, but still, like we have history. There's history, but then with Kate, she thinks she could get away with her charm and charisma, and I feel like nothing has knocked her down yet. And I think that's why in the beginning it was cute and endearing, but it kind of is kind of aggravating that she has so much privilege, and it kind of bothers me in a way, because like I love Haley Steinfeld, and I'm just like, oh, Kate, just listen to him, he knows better. And it's like she's like, I've gotten away with it before. I got a cop to give me some stuff. I got like all this stuff. I could get away with it, and it kind of bothers me about her privilege regarding that.
That's a great point. I think one of the things about her that's most Buffy-esque is her just dialogue and her banter more than, kind of the stuff that you were touching on, but also like just the fact that she's a badass in the same way Buffy is. But I think that those points that you made about their differences are like hugely valid and like such an important part of Kate's character.
And I mean, Laura, you just pinpointed why Buffy would be my favorite. Like, Buffy is like my favorite hero of all time.
Of course, she's awesome.
And so I think that you like put a good like pin on why and like how it is like she's Buffy-like, but isn't there because she doesn't understand the like seriousness of what's going on.
But that would also make sense then if something's going to happen with her mom by the end of the season. That would be the thing that would sort of be the wake up call for her almost. That would be the thing that would, put some gravity into what's going on with her.
I got the word in my head.
We're doing great on words tonight.
Kingpin.
Yeah.
But I also feel like with Buffy, she's not from a home of privilege. Her mom, parents like divorced and all this stuff. And Kate has seen trauma. She's seen death and stuff. But I feel like because of like, she feels like her father's death and she wants to avenge him and be an avenger and a hero and everything. But I feel like that dilutes her like reality to things, and like how Clint is trying to tell her like you shouldn't, this is like there's a dark side to being a hero, and she's just like, no, I was born, I've seen death because of my father and I want to avenge him, I want to be a hero. But she doesn't understand like the risk and like the seriousness of it because she's been like privileged. And I feel like Buffy never had that privilege. She's not rich. Like she moved around because she got kicked out of schools. And Kate's mom was like, all right, I'll pay a check so you don't get kicked out of school.
Yeah.
That situation.
Yeah. No, yeah. I 100% agree with that. But okay, so we get to this apartment. I was thinking, ooh, is this going to be Yelena's apartment? Like it's going to be Yelena, right?
Yeah.
Because I will say, the internet did spoil Yelena being on this episode for me, but I wasn't that mad because she was announced as a cast member when the show
I was just saying she's going to have to show up at some point. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, so I knew she was, I knew she had to show up.
You're being like, about that spoiler.
And like, I really thought this was going to be like Yelena's hideout. But then when Kate got in there, I was like, wait, this doesn't look like a hideout. This looks like fully like an adult's apartment, not like, oh, a spy is hiding out here to kill someone. So I was like, oh, and then so this is where I was like, oh, then maybe is the watch about Yelena and that's who Hawkeye's protecting because he knows she's her younger sister? But no, that was not. Again, I was wrong. But I thought the fight scenes here were like fucking fantastic. The fight scenes on this show have been really great.
Yes.
they've been like reminding me of Daredevil in the Netflix show, because that had some of like the best fights. And so I love that Maya shows up while we hear that Clint is fighting. But Clint is fighting someone else, and he thinks he's fighting Maya. But Kate is fighting Maya, and I thought even in the fight scene in this apartment was well done. Yeah, I don't know. What did you guys, Joe? What did you think about all this?
I thought it was great fight choreography, and it was very exciting. My only complaint is it was so dark at times that it was tough for me to differentiate between who was Maya and who was Yelena sometimes in like some quick shots. And because everything was very, just like, it was very dark and I get why like everybody's wearing dark clothes because we're all snooping here. We're all trying to get the jump on everybody else. But I a little more clarity on that would have made it, I think, more exciting for me. But I did like the way that it like told story through action scenes, which was very good. I think we sort of learned a lot about where Yelena's at, because we don't know how much sort of Valentina pilled she's been at this point. Like, and the fact that she like made sure that she wasn't going to knock Kate to her death at that one moment, that she made sure that she had sort of like attached that hook or whatever the hell it was, that like, oh, okay, so like we know that at least Yelena's not like, lost all, whatever heart she has that we saw in Black Widow. So I liked that it told story through that. But yeah, there were a couple times where I was just like, who am I looking at? What's going on? What's happening? So yeah.
Nana.
Yeah.
Laura, what did you think of all this at the end? Because I know it's kind of like one. There's not much to talk about because it's just an action scene, right?
Yeah, no, I mean there is so much to talk about because she saved Kate because Kate's not her target. Like her target was so, and like I feel like if she was just a Black Widow, like kill all no matter what.
Right.
But because she is who she is, she's just like, I'm not gonna kill an innocent life. I'm gonna kill like the one who I'm targeting. And it was so compared to like the episode 3, I think had the best action. But this one had a good fight scene. And I really love that Maya was even kicking like Yelena's butt too. Like in a way, it was a 3-way fight.
Yes.
4-way fight, and I thought that was really interesting because it's like the enemy of my enemy is my friend, but then I guess not this situation because she
right, but not now. Yeah.
But yeah, I really love that Kate was like, I'm gonna slide down the thing zip line and go to you guys, and then she was stuck, and she was like, what do I do? And like it was nice that that Yelena was helped her out, kind of thing, like push the thing to make her move. And I think that was intentional. It's not like an accident. I feel like, okay, I'm gonna help this kid out. So I feel like they're gonna, like, I think earlier one of you guys said that like she could have taken the shot but she didn't. I feel like this is another relation, like you said, this is gonna be a budding relationship for the young Avengers potentially.
Potentially, yes. Kim, what did you? Because I know sometimes you're not so into a fight scene. What did you think?
Well, I was very interested in what was in Maya's apartment, so that was my like main focus early on in the scene. There's a lot of good plants and pottery, and even when they started fighting, I was like, "Ooh, that's a nice something." Like all of my notes at the beginning are just like things that I was, listing on her walls, etc. Anyway, I want to talk about the part specifically when Kate gets thrown over the side of the edge of the house after the zipline thing, and instead of pulling her up, Clint just kind of like drops her into those lights, because I thought that is, there's a couple parallels to Black Widow in this end scene, and like that's one of them when he's just like frozen reaching down for her, and I thought that was just brilliant. Like it was a really good setup. We'd already talked about her, like we expect some sort of, it's just a great callback. And he's like frozen, like he's like we see him caught in his trauma in that moment, and it's so fast comparatively to, because I mean he's literally in the middle of a fight scene and it doesn't happen for that many seconds, but it's palpable, it's noticeable. Ooh, excuse me. Anyway, and then he drops her. Like that's when that moment of grief / trauma / whatever is when he realizes that like, okay, this is just a kid, like I can't let her get in the middle of this, like this is a ridiculous thing. Like he hears her mom in his head in that moment, like so much happens in that moment, and drops her. And Kate, being Kate, like of course, like goes back up the stairs or something to rejoin the fight. So I thought that paired with the moment where we get Yelena's little nod, like, don't kill me. You know what I mean? And Kate makes that choice, like, to not shoot, the callback again to what we talked about earlier. I just thought those two moments were paired really well. So it's not just a fight scene. We're also like getting all these other things too.
Yeah. I mean, you know what? Yeah.
Oh my god, I'm very emotional now because I'm just thinking Hawkeye and Widow were best friends, and now this Hawkeye and Widow might be best friends. It's just getting like cute. It's like reflection.
I will say I was emotional when we saw Yelena. I mean, one, just because of all the Black Widow stuff, and then two, because I fucking loved Yelena. Like, she was great in Black Widow, and again, I said Kate was kind of one of the first in the MCU, but Yelena was allowed to be shitty. She was allowed to be the shit talker,
right?
In Black Widow, and I thought her and ScarJo had like really great sister chemistry. I thought,
yeah, I thought so too.
And I don't know, it was nice to see her again. It was it's. I know that like I've been complaining about continuity, but a lot of the stuff, especially Laura, you were on for Shang-Chi, and like we all really loved it, and the Eternals, well, I didn't really love it, but that's fine. All of that has felt so separate. Like, it's been very like not relating back to other characters. And I don't know, this was cool. This was kind of like, in Loki, it was Loki's story. There wasn't other, like, aside from Lady Sif and that, 5-second cameo, we weren't really like tying back to other characters. And it feels like Falcon Winter Soldier, I guess, but we haven't really been seeing other characters come into these things. And it was just nice seeing a character we had only recently just seen for the first time coming back. And a character that was like very beloved, right? For me, that made it work. And I loved how purposefully Yelena fought. Like, she did not harm Kate. And it made me love her even more. I was like, ugh, I love her. She's got her like vengeance, but she's like, no, I'm not going to kill an innocent. Right. But I also like the three-way fighting. I like that her and Maya it wasn't the enemy of my enemy is my friend. It was, no, you're my fucking enemy too.
Yeah, this is my kill. Yeah.
It's like, move, bitch, move.
Right.
And like when Kate didn't take her shot as like, relating back to Clint not taking a shot, and the head nod that Yelena gave her, kind of like saying like, this isn't your fight. I'm not fighting you. I don't know, that also got me emotional because I was like, I'm so glad. I was very worried we were going to do character assassination on Yelena and just do like straight up villain when we saw her again. And I'm really glad we're not doing that because we're giving room for like, okay, maybe she's going to try to kill him, but like we kind of understand why she might want to kill him if she thinks he murdered her sister, right? Like,
Okay, question.
Yes.
For people that love fight scenes, why do our two villains, in quotation marks, run away? I feel like the fight wasn't over. I feel like Maya got shot in the arm. Is that why she left? Because she fought a little bit after that?
I think it was the shot in the arm.
Okay, and then Yelena just like jumps off the roof. Like, I feel like it fight to the death, like nobody died. So I didn't understand necessarily why they had left.
Well, I think it became 2-on-1 once Maya left, and so I think she knew better than to fight two people who are skilled with the arrow too. Because if it's just her and Hawkeye, obviously she would stay. But since Maya left, then Kate could focus on protecting Hawkeye.
Okay.
And I think Maya left because she was shot. Like, I think the arrow was
Well,
then I think that's important to mention too, like that Kate gets that shot. That's important, for lack of a better.
Yeah. No. Yeah. And like, I don't know. It really like you knew it was going to end, but I was just glad at least it did end with like, okay, the fight. I mean, like you said, Kim, it didn't really like end, but it ended with them leaving, so it wasn't like a cliffhanger. I appreciated that we like completed the scene.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. I really liked it, and I felt like weirdly emotional during the fight once Yelena's mask came off. As it's like, oh shit, like her sister was the only person that was good to her and she's dead. And like she thinks that Clint murdered her. So you know what? I understand, Yelena. Like, you do what you gotta do.
Ian, did Yelena jumping off the roof like that make you think of Faith at the end of What was
Oh my
the
god,
one?
they didn't, but
Nate
yes,
and
you're
Buffy
right.
fighting on the rooftop in Graduation Day.
I didn't even I mentioned Buffy 85 times. I didn't even think about that, but yes. Now that you say that, yes.
Your Buffy card's revoked, Ian.
I know, God, take it away. The people on TikTok are right. I'm not a real fan.
Oh, no.
All right, well, now that we're at the end, Joe, what was your favorite scene?
Oh gosh. I mean, I think it was the, Christmas sweaters and the Santa Claus and coming, I love a team sort of putting their heads together about that kind of stuff. And I like seeing these two becoming a genuine team. Like, obviously we knew this was where this series was going, even before it started, but I'm just like, yeah, like it's happening. And I don't know, I like that. And I like that it ended with, them sort of connecting emotionally too. So
Kim, what was your favorite scene?
Well, Joe stole my favorite scene.
I'm so sorry. I'm such a
double up.
So yes, that was also my favorite scene. And I want to mention, just because it's in my notes in all capital letters from that scene, and we did not mention it, I have boomerang arrows, LOL, written in my scripts.
I forgot to mention, that is from the comics. It's so weird how often this show pulls directly from the comics and reverses it. Because in the comics, Kate makes fun of him for having, like, I think it's Kate or something. It's like, why would you need a boomerang arrow for? Like, that's like a gag. Laura, what was your favorite scene?
The coin or the button that he had, and he was just like, she was like, "Oh, prove it!" But you tell me you could do that, and he did it, and she was just like, "I want to do that."
Oh, and they're doing like the bottle cap thing that all my roommates in college could do, and I could never do. The snapping your fingers with the bottle
the little
cap.
snap thing, and I was just like, I thought it was cute because you got to see him really, like chill, like, and he's not just like, he doesn't treat her like a burden. Instead, he genuinely cares about her. Because in the beginning, if she felt like a burden to him, because he's just like, oh my God, money would be better. But then he softens up and like kind of was like, you know what, you'll be my apprentice kind of thing. And I thought that was really endearing and it fits the comic books, like of how their relationship really is, how the mutual respect for each other versus in the beginning where he was cold and like treated her like, okay, I just need to get this job done.
Yes. Well, okay, so I know I said we were at the end, but that does lead me to, I actually really hate the trope of, this kid doesn't know, so I'm taking them out of the fight. And I really hated that being like where we left it, because they had just, like you said, they just became a team. It felt like they just were like, yeah, cool, we are a duo, we are fighting crime together. And then he's like, wait a minute, you're too young for this. And she's 22, she's not 14.
Right.
Like, with Spider-Man, it made a little bit more sense in Civil War because he was supposed to be like 14 or 15.
But he had that moment where he's reaching down for her. I feel like I agree that like I hate that that's how the episode ended, but like also I totally get it. Also, he's a dad, and the whole episode opens with the mom being like, "I want my kid alive," and that's why he's getting the watch, probably.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I agree with that because, like, I feel like he's just like, I don't want to lose another partner because the theme was partners, and like he's lost a lot of his partners. And I feel like when she kept saying we're partners, he's like, we're not partners because I lost my partner, and so I feel like that affected him, in a different way.
It's always that thing where like the narrative of the show is at for a moment at cross purposes with why we're watching the show. Like we're watching the show because we want to see Kate become a superhero. And for at least the moment, the thing that makes sense is that Hawkeye's got to try to protect her. So it's just like, all right, but like I'm kind of with you. Where it's like, I am just like, all right, we'll get past this and then get to the point where they're both fighting together. Cause that's the part we want to see. But it's Christmas morning. I'm at Christmas Eve right now, and I'm just like, I want it to be Christmas morning.
I was going to say, which brings us kind of full circle back to the beginning of the thing where we were all like, okay, like this isn't working episode to episode. We just want to see what happens.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
So I think my favorite scene, it's a tie between that end fight and the like them in their Christmas sweaters figuring out shit, because I thought both those scenes were like two of the stronger scenes we've had in the series so far, I think. And I'm really looking forward to getting, I hope we just get full, like a lot of Yelena. She's there and she's like not just in the shadows for the rest of the series. Right. What grade do we give this episode, Kim?
I knew you were going to ask me first.
You're the professor. You just did all your grading.
I know. I'm done with grading, Ian. I I feel like I've given every episode an A-, and I feel the same way about this one.
All right, that's fair. Joe?
Well, now Kim stole from me because I also say A-. So
what grade do you give it?
Oh, A-. Yeah.
Oh, you're still
Yeah. I am copying Kim now. I'm fully hopping on that bandwagon. Yeah, I think it was really good, and
Okay.
with a little bit of room to grow. Yeah.
All right. Laura?
I'm a strict grader because I'm Asian, and it's like A is like has to be really perfect. But I give it about 89%, so a B plus, like
Oh,
89%, because the last episode I feel like the action could have been better. And also, you know, the last episode really affected me a lot, and I really liked that, and that was an like an A. And so I feel like compared to that one, I still love the last episode more.
I love the
That's fair.
specific numbering. That's great. Yeah, that's great.
That was good, Laura. I think I give it an A-. You know what? No, I'm gonna give it an A. I'm gonna I'll counterbalance Laura's strict rating. I'll boot myself up. Yeah, thank you all for joining me to talk about Hawkeye. Thank you all for listening. If you liked Slayerfest 98, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and other corners of the internet where you get your podcasts.
And don't forget that you're doing a Buffy break.
Yes, and just thank you, Kim. We are also taking a break from Buffy the Vampire Slayer for December. I posted it on social, but I wanted to let everyone know who's listening. Please don't give us a bad review because I'm taking another break from Buffy. But I promise we'll be back in January. It's just been really hard to book guests with Hawkeye, with all the Scream content from My Bloody Judy, and the live show, which is this weekend, and you should buy tickets to, at Stonewall in New York. And doing all that has been just absolutely draining, and I needed to drop the 2 Buffy episodes we're supposed to record this month. But we are going to come back in January with all the new Buffy episodes, and we will finish out season 7 in time for the 25th anniversary. But okay, so if you like us, if you want to follow us on social media, we are at SlayerFestX98 on all social media platforms. You can support us on Patreon, which is very much appreciated and helps keep this podcast going. And if you want to follow me, I'm at ENXCarlos. Kim, where can everyone find you?
I am on Twitter at Kim and Joe South.
And Joe, where can everyone find you?
I am on Twitter at JoeReid. Reid is spelled R-E-I-D.
And Laura, where can everyone find you?
I'm on Twitter as L Sirikul, L-S-R-I-K-U-L, and I'm always updating on there.
Cool. We'll see you next time. Bye, guys.
Bye.